Hello and welcome to a brand new week of Pixel Peak.
Before we get the episode started, I would like to announce that we are now in the second week of Bianca Watch. We can only hope to hear from her soon, whether through an encoded message in a video game or otherwise.
As far as news goes, we'll be returning to No Man's Sky, which has had a Halloween-themed update.
Sony releases information about the PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility and more.
Among Us has gotten a new update as well as new attention from cheaters.
And lastly, role-playing gamers get a huge new game in Baldur's Gate 3.
After the news, we'll talk about the AMD graphics card and how it compares to NVIDIA and the next generation consoles with our PC analyst, Walker Peters.
And then we'll wrap the episode up with a review on Mafia Definitive Edition by Jacob.
We're covering all of that today. I'm your host, Kristen Lawrence.
And I'm Sydney Thompson, and we hope you enjoy your stay here
on Pixel Peak.
Last week, we talked about No Man's Sky's Origin update and all the new features players have been looking forward to. However, this week, we're here to report some of the strange and interesting bugs that players have found since the update. There have been double planets spotted, some super close to each other with even sandworms jumping the gaps. While these planets still have atmospheres, they bend the laws of physics. One player, Drake, has even reported a planet that has a pair of jaws clenched around the world. Another interesting change caused by the update is the extinction of plant life on a planet in the Euclid galaxy. 2 years ago, the planet came to the game with pumpkins-like plants, with players calling the area Euclidean Hollows. Now the update has eradicated the plant life, leaving the place looking like an abandoned base. The former pumpkin patches are now lit up with bioluminescent minerals and tendrils, making the environment look creepier than before. These changes actually work very well with the Halloween season, with players even making the area a historic site, and a seasonal haunted house of sorts. These strange changes to No Man's Sky have started to become tourist attractions within the game itself, and players are largely okay with the bugs. Players are still free to move around as they wish, and with each new update, they get to see new and interesting things as the galaxy changes.
After a long wait, we have finally received word from Sony concerning the backward compatibility for the PlayStation 5. There are a ton of details to mention, so let's get started. Of the more than 4,000 games available on the PS4, over 99% will be playable on the PS5 at launch. Of course, this means that certain games won't be, and Sony has released a partial list of them, which includes Afro Samurai 2, Hitman Go, Robinson, The Journey, and Shadow Complex Remastered. Although a majority of games will be playable from the PS5, there are some caveats, with Sony's support site claims that errors or otherwise unintended behaviors of the games may occur. Furthermore, the performance of these games running on the PS5 have not been showcased, so it is unknown if they will have a performance boost. The PS5 will have a new feature called Game Boost, which intends to deliver higher performance for selected titles, and this will allow for frame rates up to 60 frames per second and faster load times. Sony has released a few ways to access the PS4 games on the new console. For instance, if you used an external hard drive to store your games, it is as easy as connecting the drive to the PS5. Likewise, any disc copies of PS4 games can be played in the standard edition of the PS5. Save files are also potentially transferable, which will be determined by developers. Options to transfer these files will include using a LAN cable or even using Wi-Fi. PS Plus users can also transfer save files over cloud storage. Insomniac has stated that save files will be transferable for Spider-Man Miles Morales, but not for Marvel Spider-Man Remastered. Furthermore, both the DualShock 4 and DualSense controller will be available to play PS4 games on the new console, although they encourage using the DualShock 4 for the best results. Peripheral equipment will be in production by third-party companies to make racing wheels, flight sticks, and arcade sticks, which will work for both PS4 and 5 games on the PS5. In other PlayStation news, Sony has also released a video where the PS5 was deconstructed step by step to display its innovative hardware. PlayStation fans will be pleased to know that although the new console is larger than the last, it is optimized for increased performance and quieter fans.
Among Us, the 2-year-old game that has taken the world by storm in the past few weeks, has been encountering its case of cheaters. Players have reported having their nicknames changed, entire crews being ejected at the start of the match, and games where an extra imposter is added. As a game with a strong emphasis on trust, it is very upsetting to see players cheat. Programmer Forrest Willard has stated, "We're rushing to get an account system in place so we can have better moderation and reporting systems built around that. Also getting help with making the servers better at detecting and blocking hacks, and investigating client-side hack preventions as well." While its sudden increase in popularity, Innersloth is rushing to add new features. While they have cancelled their sequel game, they are hard at work to come up with an update for the first one. These features include anonymous voting, making the taskbar appear at certain times, making it easier for imposters to stay undetected, and giving dead players the ability to be guardian angels. Colorblind players have also come forward and stated difficulty with doing the wire task and identifying other players. So while they are in the works on the update, they are also working on making it colorblind accessible. For this, there is a beta update that is only available on the PC at this moment, and with no official patch notes as of yet. But players have made an unofficial list on Reddit. The creators want to give the game hosts more options to transfer the game's experiences, but we'll have to see which of these make the final cuts. For now, we'll have to wait and keep an eye out for any new information.
Baldur's Gate 3, produced by BioWare and Black Isle Studios, is now available for early access. For those unaware, Baldur's Gate is a form of Dungeons & Dragons, but in a video game. And 22 years after the first game, fans are excited that Baldur's Gate 3 is soon to be released. Although many role-playing games take elements from D&D, the transparent game mechanics are what set Baldur's Gate 3 apart, with dice rolls being shown and icons revealing whether a character makes a successful action or not. One useful part of the game is the extensive network of information available to the players. Descriptive pop-ups are activated by certain words in text. There is also an informative tutorial and even a reference section in the menu of the game. Baldur's Gate is unique from D&D as, first, it is a single-player game. There's no need to wait weeks for the perfect time for all of your friends to meet. Beyond that, the game mechanics take care of all the preparation and dungeon master work that would otherwise be very taxing. Now to explain the RPG elements in the game, which are based on the 5th edition of D&D. First, your character will have points in both abilities and skills. Abilities are more general, such as strength, whereas skills are more specific, such as athletics. In addition, your character can have proficiencies that can be based on your character's race, such as being skilled with a certain weapon. In D&D, the game is jam-packed with dice rolls, which are used to determine any number of things, such as if you can climb a very tall ledge. If you had a strong and athletic character, then there is a higher chance that your dice roll to climb the ledge would succeed. Of course, not all of the game is focused on the strategic turn-based format. A lot of the game is open world, so you can travel where you wish and find interesting places.
Hangar 13's Mafia Definitive Edition is a true testament of what is possible when it comes to old games made new again. At its core, the Mafia franchise has always tried to give the player a cinematic experience through its presentation of its characters, its linear-ish style gameplay, coupled with a few free-roaming aspects here and there within a compelling narrative. Mafia Definitive Edition puts the player back in the shoes of Thomas Angelo, a cab driver with nothing to lose during the Great Depression era turned mobster in this beautifully remastered fictional city of Lost Heaven. At the start of the game, Thomas is forced at gunpoint to drive two mobsters back to their home turf. He ends up getting paid quite a lot of money for doing so, but he vows to stay away from that kind of life, only to ultimately dive right back in after some goons from a rival gang hunt him down for helping the two he met at the beginning. Shortly after the rival goons show up, Thomas manages to lead them on a wild goose chase after him, only to lead them right into the mobster's home turf, which, after a little confrontation from Thomas's newfound mobster friends, his new life in the Mafia begins.
Tell you something, pal, we ain't leaving empty-handed, that's for sure.
Well, then maybe you ain't leaving at all.
Okay, then.
I've always been a fan of the Mafia series, and I think this remake is a special treat for longtime fans like myself, while also offering an otherwise new and unique experience to a whole new generation of gamers.
It's nice you do that.
That? Well, a lot of hungry people on this block.
Yeah.
Gameplay is pretty par for the course with how past Mafia games have been. Gunplay is essentially the same as Mafia 3, and there's a few different guns in this game, with sidearms being 4 pistols and a sawed-off shotgun, and 3 primaries to choose from, with the first being the Tommy gun, then a pump-action shotgun, and a bolt-action rifle. The heads-up display also has the mission objectives in the top left, minimap in the bottom right, and the weapons and ammo and health are displayed in the bottom left. During my playthrough, I kept finding myself enthralled by the sheer amount of detail within the game. It felt so alive, from watching the bustling traffic drive by to seeing the many citizens walking around or hanging out on the sidewalk. This sprawling city, it's simply amazing. Take this little stroll in the park, for instance. Nothing here feels out of place or barren and alone. One thing you will be doing a lot of is driving, and this game does it right. There are 2 driving modes: normal, which is essentially your Grand Theft Auto 5 style of driving, and then the mode I played on, simulation, where cars have more realistic handling, more weight, meaning it'll take longer for you to accelerate, turn and stop, and also crashes are a lot less forgiving. So if you smash into someone, you're highly likely to spin out of control rather than plow right through them. Oh, and on a side note, Mafia Definitive Edition is the first in the series to have motorcycles. I didn't spend too much time with them, but they were also fun to drive.
Took us a few years to recover.
The cutscenes of this game, much like the others before it, are where the magic happens. From facial expressions down to the musical scores, everything has been set up to take you as the player down an emotional roller coaster.
Sure. So what's the job?
One of my favorite missions in the game takes the player out of the city and into the countryside. And without spoiling too much in the way of objective details, I will say that it goes to show just how much effort was put into this remake with the added touch of weather effects. The rain, coupled by the radio announcer warning to stay off the roads during this sequence, adds this sense of immersion that I haven't seen in quite some time. The reason that this level stands out so much for me is because of the overall feel of it. It's ominous and eerie, and while I was walking around, not to spoil anything, I got the feeling that something wasn't right. I haven't had a game in quite a while make me feel so invested in just what was going on.
We don't have time for this. Sorry, pal. Guess we're doing
This mission
the hard
really
way.
was just a dynamic roller coaster of
Okay, then.
events that kept me on edge the whole time. And
Me, Tom.
having a game be able to do that,
What took
it's
you so
just an amazing accomplishment, both in and of itself. All in all, Mafia Definitive Edition was a fantastic game to play through, and just a wonderful experience all around. I highly recommend it.
All right, for this week, we're bringing it to our PC analyst, Walker Peters. Thanks for coming back, man.
Glad to be back.
Awesome. Well, if it's all cool with you, I'm going to go ahead and start right in the questions.
Let's go.
Awesome. In a few words, what is AMD bringing to the table with these new Zen 3 CPU releases?
So with CPU development, usually things are going to be a lot more linear than with GPUs where you have new technology such as ray tracing. But that's important because CPUs power everything else. They're what keeps everything running smoothly. So raw power is great. It's what you want. And that's what the Zen 3 is delivering on. Raw power, more threads, more cores, more processing power. That's exactly what you'd expect out of a top-of-the-line CPU, and that's exactly what you want.
Awesome. AMD has been known to feature high power with affordability. Though now prices have been raised in these new hardware releases, how do you think this will affect sales?
So I don't think it will affect sales all that much. These aren't just marketed or developed as good, well-priced CPUs, but top-of-the-line, highest power you can get for that CPUs. And as a result, people are willing to pay the premium for that. These are a premium product. Computer gaming and computer hardware is a expensive hobby, and people are willing to pay the prices for top of the line performance.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one thing to know before you even go into it, that it's an expensive hobby. But with these new releases from AMD, what do you think Intel should do next to stay in?
So Intel doesn't have any new releases slated until sometime next year. But what they do offer, somewhat ironically, given the last point of discussion, is cheaper price CPUs that still operate at a good power level. Since these are a little bit out of date and a little less optimized, you can get them for a slightly more reasonable price, like what you may have expected from past AMD releases, while still being a good, efficient powerhouse CPU.
My next question is, how do the features of this new hardware compare with the upcoming releases of the consoles such as the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5?
So both the Series X and the PlayStation 5 are powered by variants of the Zen 2 CPU line. These are still great processors, still very powerful, especially for console gaming, but that is what they're being used for at this point. Next-gen console gaming, which still falls behind the current top-of-the-line gaming PC ability. They're great for what they're trying to do. They're great for the builds of the Series X and PlayStation 5, but they're not going to be the top, and that's what PC gaming is for.
AMD has also announced that RDNA 2 GPUs will be set to release before the end of 2020. Given the high competition with NVIDIA, what do you want to see from these GPUs?
What I really want to see from these GPUs is a more competitive price point and raw processing power. With NVIDIA's releases, you can see a lot of the focus is on their new technologies like ray tracing and AI rendering. AMD doesn't have this, but what they can do is focus on just raw graphical processing power. And without the technologies to focus on, to brand on the box, to advertise, I'm hoping that they can compromise on a more competitive price point that people who still want powerful GPUs but don't need all the fancy features might go for.
Is there any more news I should wait for before I start building my new PC?
This is as good a time as any. Of course, one of the strengths of PC gaming is how modular it is. You can buy new parts at any time, replace old parts, get rid of parts you don't need, which means there's never really a bad time to get into it, unless, of course, you're waiting for a specific product. If you decided to build a PC with a cheaper CPU and then 6 or so months from now decided you wanted to get one of the new Zen 3 processors, you can do that, and all it'll cost you is the price of the processor and the time to replace it. So I think this is just about as good a time as any. And of course, with PC gaming, you can build anything from any range of price points, from cheap in budget to the absolute highest power imaginable. So I think this is a great time.
Awesome, man. Well, that's the last question I had for you today. Thanks for coming out, man.
Glad to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, that's the last question I had for you today. Thanks for coming out, man.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're going to throw it back to the studio with Kristen and Sydney to wrap up this week's episode of Pixel Peak.
Man, the gaming world seems to be getting better and better.
No kidding. And I'm already in the mood for a spooky season.
I guess you'll have to check out the next special episode then. We'll be playing a game in the celebration of Halloween.
Oh, that's right. I'll make sure to follow the Pixel Peak App TV account on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram so that I don't forget.
Perfect. Then you won't miss when new Pixel Peak episodes come out every Monday at noon. You can find them on watchapptv.com, Skybest channels 20 and 1020, Spectrum channel 198, and on App State's campus television channel 23.3.
And of course, we have our incredible crew to thank for another great episode. Thanks to writers Rebecca Larson and Josh Beal, PC analyst Walker Peters, and producers Nick Corbin, Elise Taylor, Haley Cipher, and Jacob Barbour for another week of impeccable gaming industry content.
Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed your stay here on Pixel Peak.